into Remote Control's latest episode. Listen in as the GCRN crew talks TV from 2000 to now, with pilot and season premiere episodes, finishing finales, and season passes as well. Now get ready to change the channel with your remote control as we bring you the latest and greatest in the world of television. All from the Geekcast Radio Network. We are all remote controlled.
A new day begins. We will rule Gotham.
From the day I met you, I was planning your end.
I'm doing this for the city. Gotham needs a lawman now, not a criminal like me.
Call me the new queen of Gotham.
Such fun we're having.
I hope to see you dead very soon.
My father's secret, it's in this room.
Grab that remote control because the GCRN's brand new TV podcast is here. We are calling it Remote Control. I'm your host, TFG1Mike, and joining me is Jeremy Fine. Hello.
I am the king of Gotham.
No,
King of the
you're
world.
not.
No.
Remote Control will be about current generations of television. This time around, we debut finishing finales. This is to talk about the season finale and how we liked or disliked the show as it aired, and if we kept up with it once since our pilot premiere episode. So basically, folks, if you listened last year, I think we had 6 pilot premieres. It was Gotham, Flash, Red Band Society, Stalker, Scorpion, Forever. If you listen to all of that, and I'll put the link to the Gotham episode in this podcast in case you hadn't listened to that. On the Gotham pilot premiere, Michael Powers from Off the Cuff had joined me, and he has since dropped the show. When they took that big break, I think over Christmas or whenever the hell it was, he basically said he hasn't watched it since the break. Season 1 is now over. We're, kind of like, okay, that's good, that's great. Jeremy, you have been writing reviews of each episode as we've gone along for Season 1 on GeekCastRadio.com. And how this is going to work is finishing finales is essentially going to be the same structure as pilot premieres, where we're going to, talk about the stage dressing and give you all the technical info. We are going to get on the casting couch, but this time for the casting couch, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we think the actors did throughout the season. Like, in pilot premieres, like I talked about, Donald Logue and what else he'd been on, or Ben McKenzie and what else he had been on, or whatever. On the finishing finales casting couch, we're going to talk about how we think the actors did in their roles on the show. And then we'll get into spoilers for the show itself. More specifically, the finale is where the discussion's going to go. And then after that, we'll exit stage left and go on from there. So, since you weren't on the pilot premiere episode, what were your initial thoughts and feelings when they first announced Gotham?
I was a little conflicted because I am old school. I was not concerned about going on the interweb or any, Entertainment Weekly. I was just going to sit back. I heard that there was going to be this prequel to Gotham, and I thought, okay, it's either going to be one or two things. It's either going to be what Smallville was to the CW or the WB, or maybe it was going to be a different type of prequel where we learn something about Thomas and Martha Wayne. That's what I thought, like the origins of how Gotham was formed by the families. Now, the continuity at 75 years of DC, I know that the Waynes helped build Gotham, if the Nolanverse tells you so itself, and the video games. But then, of course, there are the Cobblepots, and the continuity especially changed a lot in the Arkham City video game. So I was kind of curious if they were going to bring in the families of Gotham, of how they built Gotham, and then how the Mafia started to rise. And that's how I thought it was going to go. When I finally saw a preview on, during the summer, and I saw, like, okay, Bruce Wayne is screaming, his kids, and all of a sudden we get this promo before Penguin, before Ivy, before Riddler, and we would see what they're like, I guess, as tweens or whatever. There was Gotham, and I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be a 1940s piece. I don't know. Now it's kind of, it's not even steampunk. It's like, it's now, but they're trying to make it in the 1940s, but now they're kind of bringing it into the 21st century, and it keeps pulling and doesn't know where it wants to go.
It's basically Gotham. Now that I've watched all of it, I do like some of it, but the overall premise of before everything, before this, before that, it's like it's kind of like Cletus from The Simpsons. The really, really whacked out redheaded stepchild of Batman the Animated Series. And Batman the Animated Series was so much better. And they actually nailed the 1940s stuff a lot better than this did. See, that's the thing with Gotham. I never knew if they were saying that it was in the present day, like the 21st century, or if they are actually trying to tell us that, hey, this happens in, 1960 something. Because Bruce is a kid. Bruce can't be a kid in today. Like, I don't. The whole prequel thing just boggles my mind. It really does. With the whole and Powers and I talked about this in the pilot premiere episode, where if Bruce is still a kid and all the villains are the age that they are, then they're going to be so much older than it's something we're not going to get into here. But it's just one of those ass backwards things that just doesn't make any dang sense at all, even after the first season.
Yeah, I find it that this is sort of based on Elseworlds, which are kind of like Marvel's what-if scenarios. And Elseworlds have kind of come and gone. So, this is like another dimension. And that's how I've broken up every single piece of DC. The way the comic books went, you had the Golden Age, and then you had the Silver Age, and then the Bronze Age, and then the New 52. In social media or whatever, with Batman the Animated Series, I find that to be the Bruce Timm Paul Dini universe. For Batman 66, it's the Dozer, and for Burton, the Schumacher, the Nolan verse. I mean, that's how you have to break it up, and that's the problem. So the only thing I can think of is that each Gotham that we watch is in a different dimension.
Yeah, that's just too freaky for me. All right, to set the stage, in case anyone didn't know, this show premiered last year on Fox. It is a 1-hour show. It has one season so far, and season 2 has been greenlit. The first season has had 22 episodes. I don't have in front of me the number of episodes picked up for season 2, but I'm sure it'll be along the same lines. And honestly, episode numbers vary as the show progresses, because I remember this varied. Originally, this was only supposed to be 17 episodes, and then they put it up to 22, and then they put it back to 18, and they did a whole flip-flop thing with this thing because they weren't sure how it was going to do. And of course, with most broadcast television networks nowadays, it's like, hey, we'll give you this, but if your ratings don't do well by episode 6, you're screwed. And in some cases, hey, if we don't get like 10 to 20 million viewers on the first airing, you're done. Boom, canceled, over. So that's setting the stage for Gotham. As far as the cast goes, you have Ben McKenzie, Mr. Welcome to the OC bitch himself, returning to Fox. You have Donald Logue, who plays Harvey Bullock. Ben McKenzie plays James Gordon. You have Robin Lord Taylor as Penguin. You have Erin Richards as Barbara Keene. This is a sticking point for me. Not the fact that Erin Richards plays the character, but the character herself. I listened to a series of podcasts. It's called AfterBuzz TV. They do podcasts just like we're doing, except they have like over 300 of them, and they do like it's this whole thing created by Maria Menounos and all this and all that and everything else. But they have a podcast for almost every current TV show on air, and they talk about it. And I listened to the Gotham podcast with Ryan Hooks and Steve Kaufman and Monty Bolanos and a few other people I sorry, I don't remember your answer off the top of my head. But Ryan Hooks and Steve Kaufman specifically on that show are like, ooh, Barbara Keene, maybe she's going to eventually show up as Batwoman, or maybe she's going to be this, or maybe she's going to be that. And I'm like, guys, she's never going to be Batwoman. Never. It's not going to happen. I mean, unless they really want to screw with our brains, because I've looked at Barbara Keene's history in the comics, and I've looked at the Batwoman character's history in the comics. Nary the two have ever met. I don't believe so. You can correct me if I'm wrong in saying that, but I'm pretty sure what I read was right.
Yeah, I mean, I've also subscribed to AfterBuzz. I haven't listened to their Gotham yet, but as for Barbara Keene, the only thing, and I tried to write this to what I know of her, and I know there was some confusion on one of the reviews, but I only know about Barbara Keene is that she was the first Mrs. James Gordon, that they were married, right. And then somehow in the comics either she dies or they get divorced because Jim cheats on her, or whatever the case may be.
Right, with Sarah Ellison or whatever. Yeah, it's the whole year one story.
Yeah, that's all I know about Barb. But she in this series is just not. People have been taking out the pitches and the torches and pitchforks of this one.
Yeah. You got Bruce Wayne being portrayed by David Mazouz. David Mazouz, people may remember as the silent kid from Touch on Fox. You got Sarah Essen. That's the character name. Duh. You got Captain Sarah Essen. You got Sean Pertwee as Alfred Pennyworth. You got Cameron Bekovoda. I don't know. You got Selena Kyle. You got Edward Nigma, played by Corey Michael Smith. You got Montoya, portrayed by Victoria Cartanga. The actors, like specifically Jim Gordon and Harvey Bullock, I think Ben McKenzie and Donald Logue have really outdone themselves. Because I'm like, Donald Logue, like, I remember when I first heard about Gotham, I'm like, Donald Logue, who the hell is Donald Logue? And then as soon as I saw him in the Gotham original, like, trailers or promos that they started playing, I started seeing him everywhere else. He showed up on Law & Order Special Victims Unit for, like, 6-episode arc, and this, that, and the other thing. And just this past weekend, I was watching FX or FXX or FXM or one of them FX channels, and Just Like Heaven came on. And I'm like, hey, wait a second, what's Harvey Bullock doing acting with the Hulk? Because for those that don't know, Just Like Heaven stars Mark Ruffalo and Reese Witherspoon and Donald Logue. So that was interesting. And that's one of the craziest things. If I see an actor or an actress on something new that I might enjoy and I'm watching the show and I've never seen them before or I don't know of them, immediately they start popping up everywhere as soon as I watch the show. But I really do think that Gordon and Bullock have really, after the first 22 episodes, I really think as characters, McKenzie and Logue have really gone all out. What do you think of the two characters throughout, just in general, throughout the season, from where they started to where they are now?
Well, Bullock, here's what's interesting about Bullock, is that there is continuity. Bullock in the 70s was like the Bullock we see now, which is good. I think that's a smart thing. McKenzie, I like what they're doing with him as Gordon. I think it's a lot smarter to see, was Gordon always this Boy Scout? We know that he is a war veteran. We know that his father was a cop. We know it runs in the family. We know he's a straight arrow. But we don't know, other than Gordon will eventually become commissioner and talk to a man dressed as a bat. I like the history of Bullock because we just know Bullock from the animated series. We don't know anything else about this character, and it got a little confusing because I thought, well, this was the guy that was in Batman '89, but that's a totally different character. So I like...
Yeah, no, that was...
Eckhart, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Eckhart.
So,
Eckhart was supposed to be a loose interpretation of Bullock, I think, but obviously they went a little too far with that, with making his character completely bad, completely corrupt.
I like the idea, though, that Harvey apparently made a rookie mistake, and he's kind of being blackmailed into becoming a corrupt cop. And he can't do anything about it because he's under the thumb of Commissioner Loeb and I guess Carmine Falcone, because there are two Dons running Gotham. So I like the fact that why Bullock is always so gruff and angry. And then, of course, Bullock is known for weighing, close to a ton, if you remember the animated series. So I like the idea now that we're seeing him chowing down more. But I don't know if he does it out of frustration or he does it because he's just, becoming a lazy cop because he pretty much knows how corrupt Gotham is. I didn't like him in the first 4 episodes. I think towards the end of the first half of the series, Donald Logue, he's always... I love him in Just Like Heaven. He was on a Fox show called Grounded for Life. Unfortunately,
that's right.
Yeah, the only thing... the show took place in Staten Island. I'm from Staten Island. Staten Island never looked better if you ever been there. But the problem that I had with that show is that it had a laugh track. So he's very funny.
All comedies have a laugh track, so...
Yeah, but this one really abused it. So the problem is that he's funny, but they don't know what to do with him. And they put him in movies, and he just has that face and that personality. But I like how he wasn't being the tough Bullock that we know because he's under, so-and-so's thumb. So now that he's evolved, I really like him towards the end of the second half of the series. But Ben McKenzie, he was always hard because I don't know what he was trying to do. Was he trying to copy every other Gordon that we've seen on TV? And the accent would kind of come and go. Was he trying to do Chicago? Was he trying to do New York? Now we know that Gotham is supposed to be in New York City. If I understand this, because it's being shot in Brooklyn. So it was really hard to pinpoint where this Gordon was going to go. But yeah, I'm definitely impressed by McKenzie.
See, I think this is a natural evolution for McKenzie as an actor because he went from, like I already mentioned, he got his start on Fox with the OC back in 2003. After that, he then went for numerous seasons on a cop show called Southland on TNT, and he was a street cop. He was a beat cop. So I think this, even though this is a specific DC Comics Warner Brothers character in Jim Gordon, this really does set him up. And I couldn't hear any of the other versions of Commissioner Gordon in Ben's performance. I really dig it. I think it's a cool performance. It's something a little different. So I like those two characters. Bruce Wayne. I like Bruce. I think it's interesting to see Bruce at this age because he's just lost his parents. He needs some sort of guidance. And actually, let's talk about Bruce and Alfred together, considering they're in most of the scenes with each other. But Bruce, I enjoy. Bruce, I think, is a little refreshing. I like seeing the young detective in Bruce and seeing how he's eventually going to become Batman. The only origin that I really, truly will ever stick to is Mask of the Phantasm for adult Bruce Wayne. I don't give a crap about Scott Snyder's 0 Year. I don't particularly like how they kind of glossed over it and gave you allusions to it in Batman 89. I think it was a perfect setup in Batman 89, but Bruce Wayne here and seeing him in the moment as a child, seeing what will eventually happen, I really do like that. The first 10 episodes, I hated. I hated Alfred. I hated Sean Pertwee as Alfred. I remember the very first time it happened when the very first episode, second episode. When I know it was the pilot episode. When instead of being a concerned father figure, he took the more stern approach, and basically yelled at Bruce to get off the friggin' roof. And it's like, seriously, you're just going to sit there and yell at the kid? I mean, I'm not asking you to go up there and talk him down, but Jesus, have a little bit more compassion. And through the first 10 episodes, Alfred just really... I don't think it was until they did the whole stand up for yourself at school thing in that episode where Alfred was teaching him to box and whatever else. I don't think it was until then that I actually started somewhat liking Alfred. But those, at least the first 6 episodes, I hated Alfred.
I like Alfred, and I would say episode 4 or 5, like you said, when he's been with... The problem is that Alfred in the pilot kind of knows what Gotham is all about. And Alfred, we already know his history and why he's went from being a man of the world to a butler, how he's grounded himself. I like that. What I don't like is who is the quintessential Alfred. Now, we could say it's from the animated series. Other people disagree and say that it's from, the Burton universe. For me, I really dig this Alfred. Sean Pertwee, I think, really is the Alfred for the 21st century. I think he should be in the next movie. I like how he talks. I love his mannerisms. I like how he fights. My favorite part in the series is when he beats the crap out of Butch. But the problem is that we don't know how Alfred is just allowed to have the custody of Bruce Wayne. It's like Bruce's parents died, and now Alfred is the guardian. And nobody really says anything. I mean...
That's a legal thing. I mean, they probably had that in their will, and they didn't show us. They with the way Gotham is set up, they couldn't show us, like, a will reading. Like, they're just not going to show us a boardroom will reading of the Wayne's wills. So that's one thing I can suspend for disbelief, because it's one of those things where, okay, it makes sense. Alfred is the only person he has now. And, I mean, after all, the kid is loaded. His parents left him this vast fortune, so I don't think anybody's going to ask any questions about who Bruce Wayne's guardianship should go to.
Well, it's also interesting that apparently Bruce doesn't have any other family. It's never discussed. It just seems to be Alfred and Bruce, and that's it. No other relatives ever come in. But I think the best moment is when Bruce decides that he's going to go on this little camping trip on Wayne Manor, and Alfred is like 10 steps behind somehow, and they eventually build a campfire, and they bond like father and son. Like, Alfred really wants to become the surrogate father, which is great. They're bonding in the chemistry. People have complained about this. I love David Mazouz as Bruce Wayne. I cannot wait for him to grow up and be Batman in a movie someday. I think he could do it. The problem is that to see young Bruce Wayne... Here's what I like about it. In the first few episodes, I found this Bruce Wayne to be very robotic. Like, it's a 20-year-old and an 8-year-old body for some reason. Like, in a few minutes, he's screaming that his parents are killed. And now, it's like, he's either suffering... I know he's suffering from PTSD. I mean, that's already a given. But he goes back to a boarding school, and bullies are... And he's like, he's not getting it. And I'm not too sure if he was always this closed from the world, or who he was really talking to, or who his real friends were. But it's weird that after his parents are dead, you're dealing with these border school kids who are taunting him about whether or not Bruce saw their brains or guts when they were shot, and they're beating him up, and then, Bruce is allowed to go to their house and beat the crap out of them, and Alfred is just like, showing them how to fight. There's great chemistry when these two are together. And even when they're separate, and Bruce has to go through Gotham on his own, and he's with Selina, I just love the mannerisms and the line reads that he gets. But there are times I'm kind of like, whose story is this supposed to be? So I guess we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, I think I like Bruce and Alfred best when Alfred offered to finally help him figure out the mystery of the whole Wayne Enterprises, Arkham, all that stuff. That's really when I kind of came around to Alfred. Next two we're going to talk about in unison is Penguin and Riddler.
Yes.
Oh my god. Riddler, I just want to throw out a fucking window.
Really?
I cannot stand that guy.
What? Are you
Yep.
kidding me? Okay.
Nope.
Let me just interject in here for a minute. I got to ask you this, because I've been writing this in my reviews. Do you think that they took 50% of Jervis Tetch from the animated series? Because there are times that I feel that he's stalking this woman named Kris Kringle. And if he can't have her, he's going to stalk her. And even in the season finale, he starts to go like all Gollum. And I'm almost waiting for him. Like, he has the roses in his hand at one point. Like, he wants to ask her out. And he's clutching on them, and he throws them down. I remember in the animated series, Jervis Tetch did that. And he's holding on to the roses, and his hands are bleeding because he's just upset he can't have this woman.
I just find him to be an annoying character.
Well,
the way they are characterizing him, the way that they are trying to slowly build him becoming what he eventually will be, is just, it's like somebody grinding teeth behind you in a movie theater. It's, oh my god. His character progression, even in a 22 episode first season, is slower than the motherfucking tortoise against the hare. Like, this guy isn't going to win a fucking race. He just isn't in my book. And the whole thing with his character about the riddles, and the best part about the whole riddle thing is every time when Harvey and Gordon just say, "No time, Ed, just give it to me straight or go away." The only time I actually cared about anything he actually did is at the end of the season when he wrote that note. And we'll talk about that later, but when he wrote the note and the note says what it says on the edges. But other than that, I can't stand the character. I just can't stand. I don't know if it's the actor or what the deal is or the way they're trying to portray him, but I don't like him at all.
Well, here's the thing, because I'm going to defend Corey Michael Smith, and I understand why people had a love-hate relationship, why it was so creepy. I mean, in the pilot, it was like, Edward, you need to be in an asylum. You're just weird. Edward Nygma was always socially awkward. I mean, this was a character that was born intelligent. He kept asking questions, and people were just like, didn't want to be bothered with him. So that's why he's in a class by himself. I like the idea that he's in the GCPD, and I love the idea that he's so awkward because he is bookish, he loves challenges, he loves games, but the problem is he never knows when to stop. And then his only way to say, I'm smarter than you, I'm going to give you the clues because you're not getting it. I always love that about the character. It's a lot better than what Jim Carrey did, and he is going borderline psychotic, and it took a long time. But I do appreciate when he's on screen now, how he's eating chop suey, and he's eating it under a microscope because he's got to dissect every little thing to see how everything works. That's the character for me. And that he lives in this, really 4-room apartment where he's just listening to quiz shows. He's an interesting guy. I just don't think they knew what to do with him because the writers seem to be reading other comics or watching Batman Forever. I really
I don't see any of the. See, that's the thing. I don't see any of the Jim Carrey Riddler in him at all. I just like this Riddler isn't funny. He is more sadistic, psychotic, stalkerish Riddler. He's not Jim. And don't get me wrong. I know Jim Carrey Riddler was over the top and not. I know a lot of people didn't care for it, but I'd take Jim Carrey over this guy any day, as far as the character of the Riddler.
I take Frank Gorshin, and I met him, but the point.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying in the point of reference that you gave with Batman Forever. So, I don't know, Riddler. Hopefully, in season 2 he gets better. I just hope that they progress his story faster. I don't want it to end right away, but it's one of those things where at least give 2 character development traits per episode for this guy. Because as of right now, I don't ever want to watch this show again if this guy's going to continue to be on it. All right, so Penguin.
Yay.
Penguin's another one. I was like, oh god, no. Just the whole waddling thing, the whole... he's essentially, instead of making him a common criminal or a common thief like he's normally been, they've turned him into a serial killer. So you have 2 major Batman villains. One is a serial killer, one is a stalker.
Okay. I just have this about Robin Lord Taylor, and I had a chance. Unfortunately, he was going to be at WizardCon this year.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, something happened, but I got to see and meet, Ben McKenzie. But there were about 5 people dressed as this new Penguin. Again, it's 75 years continuity. Penguin, take your pick of his origins, but the point being is that somehow the Cobblepots came from money, they lost it, and Penguin is just trying to be the gentleman's gentleman and try to gain his fortune back. But the problem is he's always socially awkward because his parents were neurotic, or sometimes they lack social skills. It depends on which universe and continuity the parents come from. So Penguin is socially awkward because either his mother was a hypochondriac and his father apparently decided to take a walk one day during a summer shower, got sick, and died of pneumonia, so his mother forces him to walk around with an umbrella always, and he's short, he's fat, but he loves to study birds. That's Penguin. And Penguin just wanted to become a criminal because he just wanted to fit in with somebody because he couldn't fit in with society, so he figures he'll fit in with the underworld. That's what I love about this Penguin, and that's what he's pretty much doing. But unfortunately, and I'm not going to take anything away from Carol Kane, the mother is alive in this universe. The mother apparently comes from God knows where. It's Carol Kane doing some sort of European accent, and she doesn't know anything what Penguin is doing. But the problem with Penguin is that there are times he acts like Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. And that's going to be a problem, and he always seems to play somebody against the other one, and he never seems to have a plan. And he can become psychotic. He's not a serial killer so much. He just seems to want to work with whoever he can work with. He's a locust more than a penguin. And as soon as he's done with that person, he offs them, but he doesn't really have so much of a plan. He wants to be in charge because that's, again, that's Penguin for you. I don't think he's as slick as he should be. And the problem is that we have seen him with the umbrella in this universe, but there are times he's still using the gun. And I'm waiting for him to put a weapon in the umbrella. Until then, he's fun to watch. I kind of like when people were calling him a penguin in the beginning and he was killing them because, it's kind of like Marty McFly from Back to the Future. But the problem is that, I don't know, one day there was a bad makeup job and he kind of looked like the Great Gonzo. And
that's insulting to Gonzo.
Yeah, well, it's that episode, I think, where they go to Loeb's parents and, he looks too much like a bird. The problem is that I want to root for this guy. I love the actor, and I've always been a fan of this character, but you're right. I don't know what they want to do with him. There are times that he's charming, and then there's times he's cowardly, and then there are times he's just psychotic, and they're going like 3 different versions, and they're not really picking, and by they I mean the writers, where they want to go with this character.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about just 3 more quick characters, then we're going to get into actual thoughts on the overall season, and then spoilers for the series finale, or the season finale. We got to talk about Catwoman, or Catgirl, I should say. I like her. I think she's kind of fun. I look at Selena and Bruce in this as a two-sided coin. He's heads, she's tails. He's somewhat dark right now, but he still has some sort of hope and reason of expectation, whereas she is so far down the rabbit hole, pun intended, that she has no real optimism whatsoever when it comes to dealing with life. And I really enjoyed her when she was in scenes and stuff. I thought it was kind of cool.
You know what? Again, I know what this character's about. I know that Bruce is going to get his heart broken and then some until, Talia comes along. The problem I have with a young Selena Kyle is that I've seen this character before where it's the tough-talking, street-wise kid, but it's in a Catwoman suit. I like her at times. There's about 2 or 3 episodes where she's fun to watch. We'll get into the season finale. The only problem that I have with this, you're right, is that there's yin and yang. I don't know where they're really going to go with the relationship. I mean, I think the best episode where they were at that Gotham charity ball, and it was a reference, I think, to Batman Returns. At least that's what a lot of people on the net a few years. That's what people a few days later on the net were saying. Oh, this is right out of Batman Returns where they're at the costume ball. But the only problem that I have with this Selena Kyle is that I'll give her the second episode that she was in. I'll give her the episode where she was at Wayne Manor as a safe house, and then she and Bruce had to, leave and go to downtown Gotham and escape. I'll even give her the next to last episode that she was in with the situation between her, Bruce, and Reggie. I'm not hating the character, but we're going to get to, in a few minutes.
The final 2 we have to talk, well, the final 3, I should say. I should have said this because I didn't bring up the other one, but final 2 big ones I want to mention are how we feel about the translation of Falcone and Mooney. And then we also have to talk about Fish Face. Oh, I'm sorry. Fish Mooney. Ugh,
yes.
God. Okay, so Carmine Falcone and Sal Mooney. Do you feel that these actors have done the characters justice?
Here's the thing. I'm familiar with Mooney because he's the guy who would, throw the acid in Harvey Dent's face. The problem is that David Zaz was so boisterous in this series and so over the top that I knew that he was going to do or say. He started to become Scarface, Al Pacino Scarface. And in the first couple episodes, I hated the guy. He was annoying. I couldn't wait for him to get off And then I think by the second half of the season, where the bomb goes off and he's in the GCPD and he's laughing with the corrupt cops, I'm really starting to appreciate this guy. He's, he could be loud and boisterous and intimidating at the same time. And I knew that 1 or 2 things were going to happen. He was going to be killed by Penguin, no doubt. But the problem was they were prolonging the death, and I figured, okay, by season 4 or 5, it's going to happen. There's a great moment, I think, between him and Penguin where they're up in a cabin with, doing the I Got a Secret game. And it was a great scene. The problem is that I did not, well, again, we'll get to the finale, but do I think he was a great actor? Yeah, I think it's David Zayas. He was awesome by the second half, and I think it's going to be interesting who's going to, come along. But as for John Dolman as Carmine Falcone, I have 3 problems with this. I like how he was pretending to be a senile old man, like he couldn't handle being the Don anymore. He's seasoned. He kind of knows that change is coming. He kind of knows that I'm Megatron and Penguin is Starscream. He's not as stupid as, Mooney is. So when Carmine knows that somebody's going to try to usurp him, he pretends to be this docile, sweet old man. The problem is that there's a moment where we have that mole come in, I think Liza, and he wants to protect her, and he's like, okay, I'm going to leave Gotham. I'm like, you're going to leave Gotham over this woman that you don't know too much about? And then as soon as Penguin says something, Carmine doesn't want to believe it, but he's starting to realize that somebody is going to take him down, and I thought he was going to, get stronger, and he acted like he was getting stronger, and he kept playing two sides of a coin and being really manipulative on whether or not he could still or wanted to control Gotham. And he could do it, and he was the guy you were really going to support, because I'm like, oh, he's not as senile as you think. He's not as soft as you think. He's just pretending to do that, so when you think, it's time to take the lion and throw him out into the field, or, leave him and I'll take over the pride, no. Falcone still has claws. Then, again, we're going to get to that finale. I was really disappointed with what happened. But Fish Mooney, I've said this offline. I thought this was Eartha Kitt. I thought that once she adopted Selena, or whatever the case may be, it was going to be Tiny Toon Adventures. Again, the problem with Fish is that she really was the worst lieutenant. She was a Starscream. She was somebody that wanted to take over, and then all of a sudden she goes, you know what? I still have respect for Carmine Falcone. We're not going to kill him. We're just going to force him to leave Gotham and never come back. I'm like, what? What? And then it's like she doesn't kill him, but then he comes out of nowhere and sends her to somewhere in Europe with the doll maker. And then when she's with the doll maker, she's still trying to control the inmates and the doll maker, and she still thinks she has the upper hand. She just happens to make up everything as she goes along because she comes from the streets, and she thinks that her street smarts is gonna save her ass. And that's when I started to lose interest. And then is when she said on Regis and Michael, whatever that show was, oh, I'm not going to be Fish Mooney. I only signed on for a year. I thought that was just like, okay, I want the fans to shut up. You don't care about the character, but something interesting is going to happen. So maybe if I say this, everybody will just leave the character alone. No, and we'll get there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to jumping or not jumping the shark here. As the season progressed, it's more so the time breaks that really screw me up on shows. Like, okay, the holidays I understand, but like, let me see here. Let's see. The show started September 22nd last year. They took a break in November 24th to January 5th. So that's standard. I get that. That's fine. They then took another break, March 2nd to April 13th. They took a month off, essentially, between episode 18 and 19. Why? Like, if your show is going strong, if the ratings are strong, the viewers are strong, why do you need... And I know I'm probably going to answer my own question here and say, oh, well, it's because of the...
March Madness.
Well, I was going to say it's because of May sweeps. May TV sweeps. And no, it wasn't March Madness, because March Madness was all on NBC and all that crap. So that really had no consequence. It's just one of those things where that's really what trips me up on it's not just this show, it's any TV show. As I was going through the season, there are certain episodes I liked, certain episodes I didn't like, certain episodes I came away with satisfying feelings about them, and then certain episodes where it's like, oh my god, they really did that. One of the ones that I really did enjoy was how they brought in episode 9, they brought in Harvey Dent, and they kind of teased him up a little bit. That's one thing. With Sal Maroni gone now, spoilers everybody, Sal Maroni now gone, I'm wondering if they're going to bring in Harvey more, and we're going to see his transformation in season 2 into Two-Face. That would be interesting to have Penguin, Two-Face, and Riddler.
That's what I thought. I thought, well, season 2, that's when they were going to bring in Harvey Dent. That was the other problem I have with the series as well. And we haven't even talked about Harvey or all the other minor characters that have kind of come and gone. What happened to Harvey? There was an entire episode dedicated to him, and he was hardly in it, and then he disappears, and he comes back again, and he disappears. I mean, here's the only problem I have, is that they seem to be dump trucking all the characters now. As for jumping the shark, I could tell you right now when they jumped the shark, and I thought it was an interesting idea, and then they just didn't know what to do with it, where the whole electrocutioner storyline, where Jim Jim came very close to bringing down Mayor McSweaty, Richard Kind, who we haven't seen in God knows how long, I think since November. And what happened is that Jim and Harvey had all this evidence to bring down the mayor and Falcone, and what happened? Barbara Gordon apparently disappeared, and she felt concerned that she comes back and everything got ruined. And, again, Gordon got demoted to being security guard at Arkham for like maybe 2 episodes. Now, it jumped the shark for me because at one point I'm like, okay, Gordon working in Arkham works because on one hand, he'll get to understand Gotham's criminally elite in the not-too-distant future. I get what they're trying to do with this. The problem is that we kind of have this montage, and I feel, and I wrote this in one of my reviews, that people don't understand that if you're going to pretend to be mentally ill, you can't just put on a lab coat, frizz your hair, and start talking to yourself and howling at the moon. When I had to do that for a production of Cuckoo's Nest, the director looked at me and said, well, why are you mentally ill? What's your mental status? And I was like, hamana, hamana, hamana. I had to race to the library, get a book of mental illnesses, and come back and say, this is what my character and what it's all about. So I have problems when you have this giant guy holding a baby doll and ready to tear Jim's head off, and we could have learned a lot about Arkham because apparently it was docile for a century or two. It's being reopened, and we really could have gotten something out of it. And there's an inmate that dresses up like a staff member, and this is something else that pisses me off about the show, is that characters that are getting built up could die very easily in this series within the last 5 minutes of the episode. It's almost like something out of the Naked Gun movies where you think the villain's going to survive, and 2 minutes later a man-eating lion comes and kills you. That's a problem that I had when Gordon was a security guard at Arkham, because he was really starting to learn about these inmates. The only thing he brought back with him was Leslie Tompkins, and now he's dating Leslie, which is okay. I think they have better chemistry, but the problem is that something that was being built up, and also I kind of wonder how the Waynes had something to do with the asylum, because there was something to do with a real estate deal that had to deal with Arkham being closed and being reopened, and it had something to do with Thomas and Martha, and all that kind of like has now fallen flat, other than for 2 episodes Gordon is going to be a security guard, and that's it. And then all of a sudden he's a cop again.
Yeah, I hope that in season 2 that they will go ahead and address the whole Arkham thing and the whole Wayne storyline. I want season 2 to, instead of being this like villain of the week, like Spirit of the Goat and Balloon Man and blah 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 blah. Like, I want this show to be 2-parters. I want this show to be stuff like the fearsome Dr. Crane in episode 14, and then the Scarecrow in episode 15, or the blind fortune teller in episode 16, and the Red Hood in episode 17. So I want it to be that. I don't necessarily want it to slowly focus on like all the episodes I just mentioned. They pretty much, all 4 of them. 2 are Scarecrow, 1 is Joker, 1 is the Red Hood gang. All classic Batman stuff, but I want the show to tell more consistent stories. I don't want there to be a villain of the week. This show does not need a villain of the week. You've got 75 fucking years of continuity to pull from. You don't need to introduce, fucking Egghead or King Tut or somebody like that in a villain of the week story. That's what Batman 66 is for. That's really how I feel about the evolution of Gotham. I like the Joker-like episode. I thought that was kind of cool and fun. It was an interesting way to show a young Joker. Do I think that's ever going to show up again? Probably not. Not in that same incarnation. But I thought that was kind of cool. Scarecrow, I've never been a fan of Scarecrow, so I could either take that or leave it. With the series finale, they were rushing. They had to have been rushing to tie every little thing up because there's so many bows tied on the season 1 finale. Okay, so I am going to read this. I don't want anybody to get mad, but I am going to read this just so I'm clear here. So, episode 22. All happy families are alike. The mob war between Falcone and Mooney escalates. Barbara, following Ogre's death, undergoes trauma counseling with Leslie when Falcone is hospitalized during an ambush. Also, Cobblepot and Butch arrive to kill him with a plan to take his place, only to be stopped by James Gordon with Bullock's help. So it goes on and on and on and on and on from there. The whole ogre thing, I like the guy playing the character of the ogre, but that was just some weird storytelling. That was some weird way for them to bring Barbara back into the story, because until that point, she hadn't really been anywhere.
Well, here's the thing, and people were asking about this as well. They were asking about the apartment that, the loft that she was in. Like, it was just one of these things that you can come and go. There was a moment where Barbara and Selena and Ivy, you remember her? Ivy Pepper, they were all in this loft. And it's from the comic Gotham City Sirens, where the 3, Gotham rogues are together and they're forming a gang. I thought that Barbara was going to start to become a variation of Harley Quinn, because she's starting to say, use your body as a weapon. Barbara comes back because she's damaged. Yeah, I know how eventually she meets up with the ogre, but I thought maybe 2 things were going to happen. That Jim Gordon was going to have his Joker. Before Batman has a Joker, Gordon would have one. That would make sense, because before Batman, there's Gordon, and he's, Gordon should have a Joker. It would only make more sense on how he relates with Batman. But the problem is that Ogre dies at the end of this episode, before the season finale, which makes 0 sense. Barbara is suffering from trauma. She takes Leslie back to the apartment. They have this monologue. And of course, as we know from, the next to last episode, the ogre apparently killed Barbara's parents, but she claims that she's the one who did it. Yeah, she claims that she did it. I'm watching the episode. I'm seeing that the ogre takes a step, and it looks like he's killing them with a knife. But we do know that Barbara and her parents, they don't really seem to have any love. And the thing with Barbara is that anyone who tries to get close to her, like whether it be Montoya or Gordon or her parents, she gets heartbroken. The problem when she starts to go insane and tries to kill Leslie with a knife, I'm sorry, I was laughing. At one point I thought, okay, if it's Harley Quinn, I'm okay. But to see this woman in a short skirt and barefooted trying to kill Leslie, and then Leslie somehow gains her inner strength and bashes Barbara's head in, I'm kind of like, what? And then before that, the episode before that, all of a sudden we get something out of the way where Barbara has been saved from the ogre but we don't know what happened to Barbara. Was she going to go into Arkham? Was she in the hospital? No, this week, oh, she's just talking to Leslie Tompkins and everything's okay, but Leslie insists that she needs trauma counseling, and Barbara's like, well, I just want to talk to you. And Leslie, I'm sorry, she's a trained psychiatrist. She knows there was a relationship between her and Gordon, and yet she's still willing to take somebody who was being kidnapped and tortured by the ogre, and she's way out of her league with what's going on with Barbara, at least so she's hinting, and she's still willing to take her back to the apartment and talk to her and not realize that Barbara's going to try to murder her. This is piss poor storytelling as far as I'm concerned. Fish Mooney, who we thought was shot when she was leaving the Dollmaker's Island, comes back with a mohawk, recruits Selena Kyle, which is... they don't even talk. She just shows up on a boat like Captain Jack Sparrow. And she's just going to... I guess this is supposed to be like a 1966 Bat Trap, where you have not Commissioner. You have Gordon Bullock and I guess Penguin at one point, Falcone, and and we didn't even get to that point part too, where Penguin was going to kill Falcone. Yeah. Everything just got so... I thought there was going to be a mob war between Falcone, Penguin, and Maroni. That never happened. Penguin keeps saying a war was going to come. We saw previews of the so-called war. No, it was just Penguin decided to play one Don against the other and then going to kill a Don, and then Commissioner Loeb, we barely talked about him. He's corrupt. Everybody just...
He's barely, like... That's the thing. Like, in the very beginning of the series, they set it up where Gordon has to make this choice to be, not on Carmine's hit list or whatever. And, it looks like Gordon makes the right choice, even though we as the viewers know he didn't shoot Penguin. He just looks like he shot him. But, like, Commissioner Loeb should have been all over this from the... Like, we should have met Commissioner Loeb the end of the very first episode of the series. So we could see him be a threaded storyline throughout the first season. They brought him in, like... They mentioned, like, 5 episodes in a row. Oh my god, nobody crosses GCPD. There's too many corrupt people at the top. Then they bring him in, and he does... I like the actor. I like the, how the actor portrayed the role when he was on screen, but he's essentially inconsequential to anything that has friggin' happened in season 1. I don't know who's more of a useless character, Commissioner Loeb or Richard friggin' Kind as the mayor.
Oh, they're both useless. And, the thing is that we know that either in the video game or in the Nolanverse, they're going to be taken out. They're just puppets as far as I'm concerned. They're just props. They're such a non-entity, I don't care. Other than I hate them both. I don't have anything against the actors, but these characters are absolutely useless other than the fact that they're corrupt because everybody seems to be under Maroni's thumb or under Falcone's thumb. And if Falcone would have stayed... he could have fixed everything. We know Batman's going to do that in a few years, but until Batman shows up, Gotham is going to be more fluster-clucked than it already is. The second thing is that Maroni starts calling Fish Mooney babes. She can't stand it. We know that Falcone is a little bit more controlled. Maroni is not. So what happens? It's Fish that blows Maroni's brains out, which is so disappointing because we figured it's got to be Penguin because it's building up to Penguin. No, it's going to be Fish because Maroni can't stop sexually harassing Fish. And then everybody apparently has got a gun. Penguin comes out of nowhere with a gun, just starts shooting people for the sake of shooting people. And then, and I haven't even gotten to this part because I got another idiotic question, where is Victor Zsasz through all this, who apparently was working with Falcone, and he's the one who apparently mind-controlled or whatever to Butch, which was Fish Maroni's right-hand person. They're on the rooftop, and we have this classic shoot him, he's the evil one. No, shoot him, he's the good one. No, Butch shoots both Penguin and Fish in the arm on top of a building, and then apparently Penguin is able to push Fish off the top of this building like Batman 66. She falls in the water, and as I said, Maroni is dead. Fish could be whatever, and Penguin is
Fish is dead. Fish is dead. The only reason why I know Fish is dead is because, Mrs. Will Smith said she was only going to be on the show for one season.
Well,
so
yeah, she also
for the first season. So she said she was leaving after that. She said she may come back, but that's the only reason why I know Fish Mooney is currently deader than dead. Is that Jada Pinkett Smith is not going to come back for the second season. And I personally don't think they'll recast her. If they pull a Last Man Standing and recast the role, that's just going to make Gotham even worse than a lot of people already think it is.
Yeah, I've heard different things about because she fell in the water, and this is kind of like something at Batman 66 with Catwoman that fell from a tall building into the water and she re-emerges. But again, I don't know. All I know is that Penguin now is on top of the building. He does I'm the king of Gotham, and all of a sudden Falcone says, "You know what? I'm going to retire." And I'm kind of like, after everything that happens, because one person tries to usurp your side of Gotham, you don't want to be. Now I thought it's another, mind fuck. No, it's not. He really is going to. So I'm thinking to myself, well, there's Daggett, there's Thorne. There's, I guess, maybe Scarface. I mean, is that what's going to happen now? I don't know. I
don't know either.
I mean, this is where it got so bizarre. And then, of course, we didn't even talk. Again, there's so much to talk about. We don't know what's going to happen with Selena Kyle because she stabbed Jim in the back. Now, this is nothing new. We know that she doesn't take sides because Catwoman is kind of like, she does whatever she can to survive, but apparently now she has taken a side. We don't know what's going to happen with her because she was working with Fish and she kind of disappears. But the biggest question that I have now is that Bruce found the Batcave? So you're telling me that Thomas created the Batcave? Which, again, I talked about this. In the Greatest Batman Stories Ever Told, Volume 1, and I've said this a million times, Thomas dressed up as a bat for a costume party, was kidnapped by mobsters, was forced to remove a bolt from a mafia boss, and then he knew that the mafia boss was going to kill him. Thomas somehow escapes. The mafia boss hires Joe Chill to mug the Waynes and make it look like a mugging, and of course, eventually Batman pins everything together. I've talked about that. The problem is that throughout all of this, when did Thomas put together the Batcave? Was he?
See, I think it's one of those things where, first of all, they barely talk about Thomas and Martha after they're dead. They barely investigate the thing. They have so many other storylines going on. They don't even focus on it, and they try to tie this up in the last episode. In the last episode, we met Lucius Fox. And Lucius says all this stuff to Bruce about, your father this, your father that. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad. I like that they introduced Lucius Fox. I still wish it was Morgan Freeman, but whatever. The whole thing with the Batcave is, the way I see it is, if you look at Mask of the Phantasm, and obviously we have, if you look at Mask of the Phantasm, or even if, take it with a grain of salt, if you look at Batman Forever, and how Bruce originally discovered the cave, he fell down a hole. In Mask of the Phantasm, he was actually spelunking down the hole, because Alfred was like, do you need more? Do you need this? Do you need that? And he's like, oh, it's bigger than we originally thought. So, obviously, they're not going to have David Mazouz, or whatever his last name is. They're not going to have the kid fall down the fucking hole to find the fucking Batcave. They're going to find
Yeah.
some sort of cliffhangery way to incorporate it in, basically the biggest, I can't even try to do this with my own eyeball, but the biggest fan wank you could ever imagine. That's what they did here, is, oh, hey, guess what? This is your daddy's secret. And your daddy on Earth 5154 was Batman or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. This is the only thing I can think of, is that it's not, they didn't want to have the kid fall down a hole to discover the Batcave. And they had to do something with the Thomas storyline, because they did nothing with it the entire season. The Waynes got killed. Oh my God, there's this huge conspiracy with Wayne Enterprises and Arkham. Oh my God, there's this, and this, and this. And none of it ever connected to anything, because they never focused on it. They had too much other crap going on. They had too much crap with Fish, Mooney, and all that. And then all of a sudden, in the season finale, they want to leave us just hanging off that cliff and be like, hey, here's the cave. See you next year, everybody. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know. You have any other thoughts on the series? I keep wanting to say a series finale, because honestly, secretly, now I really want the show to be done. But do you have any other thoughts on the season 1 finale before we take a quick break?
No, I'm done with it. I mean, I'll probably watch season 2, but I'm just like, the dialogue is okay when some of the characters can play off of each other, but everything is like, we'll make everything up as we go along.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back with final thoughts, ratings, all that good stuff, and exit stage left after this.
Ah, brave new world that has such putzes in it. You know, kids, a lot has changed while your old Uncle Joker's been away. New Gotham, new rules, even a new Batman.
It isn't 65 years in the future, but Legends of the Dark Knight has gone beyond. Batman Beyond, that is.
Ah, the new boy. Ears are too long and I miss the cape, but not too shabby. Not too shabby at all.
Join Steve and Mike as they delve into the remaining episodes of the podcast, where they'll cover Batman Beyond, products, games, and more. Check it out only on GeekCastRadio.com.
Jeremy Fine here, along with
Wyatt Jones, the Puce Gargantua.
And we are Wild Stallions. No, we're Hunnick Outcasts. We're going to cover everything from kaiju to comics to TV to video games. You name it, we'll cover it. And you never know where we're going to be. Right now, we're on Facebook.com. We're on Spreaker, iTunes, Twitter, TuneIn Radio. We're also partnered with the Geekcast Radio Network. We're everywhere, man. We're even in your breakfast cereals.
In fact, this call is coming from inside your house.
Yeah. So check us out. All one word, Hunnick Outcast. And we have brand new artwork thanks to Renee Batista. Finally, a podcast that will never be questioned.
All right, folks. We are going to exit stage left and give you our final thoughts on Gotham Season 1. And also give a rating on the GCRN Universal Rating System scale, 0 to 5 stars. For me, final thoughts. Gotham is hit or miss at best. You can watch one episode, enjoy it. You can watch the next episode and really hate it. I think the continuity of the show is all disjointed. The storylines, if you're going to sit here and use your season 1 finale to tie up everything and then tease one big thing for the next season, do a better job of it. I don't know. There's certain things I liked about Gotham, and then there are other things that just, I got to give it a 3. I can't give it any more or less than that. I got to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. What are your final thoughts, Jeremy?
I'm giving this a 2.5. I'm going down the middle. I'm going to give it a few episodes. I'm going to give Penguin's Umbrella, Selena Kyle, The Red Hood, definitely the Scarecrow episodes. And ironically, Jonathan's father, of course, was in the movie Arachnophobia, where, he's in a movie about the fear of spiders, which I thought was really cool. But everything else, I want to give it a higher rating, but the problem is it goes back to the writing, because everything keeps being made up as it goes along, and nobody seems to know what they're doing. And it's like they're so dependent on the comics and the movies that they don't really seem to understand the point of a prequel. And even with any prequel, you're introducing characters that we don't really care about because it's hard to try to bring them in 75 years of continuity. If you needed to bring characters in, you have so many. Unfortunately, I'm reviewing this on a professional level, and I'm saying there's hope, but the writing flat out sucks. There's only been maybe 4 or 5 characters that can play off each other to help save this series, but I don't I'm gonna buy it on DVD. I don't know if I want to listen to the audio commentary.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be buying this on. I don't think I'll be buying this season on DVD. I just don't. It's just not. I don't mind watching it on TV and all that stuff, but no, I just don't think Gotham really hit what it wanted to hit.
Yeah,
I think what it wanted to do was to find a way to get the Batman mythos back on television without actually saying, "Hey, here's Affleck," because after all, that other movie isn't going to come out for another fucking year. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion for another podcast entirely. But
I'm going to be on that, folks. I'm going to be on.
I don't even know I'm going to be covering it. I don't even know I'm going to be watching the damn thing. Anyway, it's one of those things where Gotham, as I said before, my final thoughts on it are pretty much, it's a giant fan wank with little to no story.
Yeah, I think we could talk about it to death. Folks, Gotham is Mad Libs. It's little Gotham. It's just, unfortunately, you have to tighten the writing, and you just can't dump truck every single character. The animated series gave these characters time to breathe, and they treated it like a radio drama, and they realized which character. And the other thing is, stop killing off every new flavor of the week type of character. Have them come back. If you don't want them to come back, the Balloon Man, okay, there had to be an early psychotic. You are not getting it. And unfortunately, if you don't stop killing these important people off or people that could work, then this is just going to be, you don't care about character development, and you're just insulting my intelligence. And when I'm done watching Gotham, instead of taking a hot shower, I'll watch Batman 66 or I'll watch the animated series. That's what I'm doing. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, no, that's not a good sign at all. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on Remote Control. This is our first Finishing Finales episode. Coming up next, we've got a few other Finishing Finales. There's a lot of TV shows that we covered in the pilot premieres season of Remote Control that didn't quite make the cut. So I think we had 6 or 7 pilot premieres. We're only going to have 4 Finishing Finales episodes. Then we're going to have a couple of season passes, and then we're going to start the actual podcast later on this summer. We hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Remote Control, and wish you'll join us next time. For now, I am TFG1Mike with
on our Galcast.
Tune in next time when we all be fighting over the remote control.
Thank you for tuning into Remote Control. There are several ways to get in contact with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com. You can email us, feedback@geekcastradio.com. You can leave us feedback in iTunes. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. You can become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Call the voicemail line. Tell us the show you're leaving the message for and your name. 502-526-5821. We hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Remote Control and wish that you'll tune in next time to hear what TV topic we'll be talking about. Get those remotes ready because we are all remote controlled.